Okay guys, so today I'm going to teach you about how to mix colors and about the color wheel. Now this is really important when you start painting, but rather than use paint right away, you're actually going to use colored pencils. And so the only colored pencils that I want you to have are the three primary colors, which is yellow, red, and blue. And then I also want you to have a black colored pencil, which I'll get to in a second. The reason I want you to only have these colors is because you can make all the colors that exist just using these three. So although you have an entire rainbow of colored pencils, I only want you to use these three because it'll challenge you to understand how all the other colors are made. So, for example, when you combine yellow and red, you get orange. When you combine yellow and blue, you get green. And when you combine red and blue, you get violet. The more of a certain color you have in there, that color becomes dominant. So for example, if I'm mixing yellow and red, but I add more red than yellow, then it's not going to be orange, it's going to be red-orange. It's going to have more red in it, and that works for all the colors. So how do you actually mix these? And it works somewhat similarly with paint, except it's obviously paint, not colored pencil, so we're going to practice with colored pencil first. So let's just pick two colors. So I'm going to do red and yellow, which makes orange. When you start off, if you guys remember when we did drawing, cross-hatching, right? So cross-hatching is when you go back and forth with a pencil. So cross-hatching, kind of when you go one direction, and then you go another direction. And you keep doing this until all those pencil directions aren't visible anymore, right? This is how you shade. This is how you add value to something, right? Again, called cross-hatching. You're going to do the same thing, but now each layer, instead of being with pencil, is going to be done with colored pencil. So first I'm going to start off with my lightest color. You always want to start with the lightest. So I'm just going to do a very light layer of yellow. And then I'm going to change direction and go very lightly with red. Because if I put too much pressure down my red, it's gonna be much harder for me to change that and transform it into orange. And I'm going to change different direction again with my yellow. Now go in a different direction with my red. And now I'm noticing that my red is becoming more and more dominant. It's slowly turning into orange, but it's becoming more and more red. So now I'm going to take my yellow and I'm going to put more pressure down. Now I'm going to go another direction with my red, lightly. And you can see that at this point, it's really hard to tell which direction my pencil is going, right? Because I've gone in so many different directions. And you can see now that this is pretty close to an orange. Keep switching, keep going back and forth. So we have made orange, right? Which is red and yellow. So that's how we do that. So then if you were doing, let's say, I'm not going to show you with all the colors, but that's how you would then, you do the same thing to make green, right? So green would be blue and yellow. And then violet would be blue and red. Okay, and let me just show you how to do this, and then I will speed it up so you don't have to watch me doing this too long. I have my three secondary colors. So primary colors are red, yellow, and blue. These are the colors that can't be made. The secondary colors, orange, green, and violet, are the colors that are made when you mix two primary colors together. And with colored pencil, you always want to make sure whatever color is the lightest, you put more pressure down with that one. So you can see with the yellow, I put a lot of pressure down when I was making orange and green. And then with the blue and red, they're both kind of the same value. The blue's a little bit darker, so I just kind of put equal amount of pressure on those to get the violet. Okay, so that's how you would do to make the colors. Another way you can also go about doing it is by doing kind of a, almost how when you do a Venn diagram. And then to do that, you would add yellow on one side. And you can see the pencil's probably not the best because you can see it's starting to smear. But you do yellow on one side, red on the other, and then only the middle is going to turn orange because the other sides are just the solid color. But you would still always want to crosshatch, right? So you always want to crosshatch so that way you can never see your pencil lines. You can see my pencil's a little dirty after I made that green, so it's important to always clean that off. There you go. And so you can see in the middle, I've made orange. But it's kind of a nice way to visually see how the two come together to make a color. Okay, so now I want to talk about, you've made the colors, now what if you want to make them lighter or darker? So when you add white to a color, it's called a tint. It's called a tint, okay? When you add black to a color, it's called shade. Which makes sense, right? Because if you think about it, when we're cross-hatching, we're shading because we're adding a dark value onto a piece of paper, and that's where we get the word shade. With colored pencil, we have a black colored pencil. Now there are white colored pencils, but we don't actually need it. And the reason we don't need it is because the paper itself is white. So what that means is if you want to make a color lighter, you just need to use very little pressure so that the white of the paper shines through into the color. And if you want to make it darker, well then you're going to add the black colored pencil. So what you do now is just pick one of these primary colors, and I'm going to go with red, okay? And you are going to go from, in the middle, right, I'm just going to do these kind of blob areas. I'm going to do a little area right here. So this is my red. I'm going to cross hatch it. Okay. Now, going this direction, I'm going to shade. But going this direction, I'm going to do a tint. So what that means is, for this one, let's say I'm going to go 2 sections over. I'm just going to go a little bit lighter so that the paper shines through. I'm not adding any other color, not using any other colored pencil. I'm just putting a lot less pressure down on my colored pencil. Okay, but I'm still cross-hatching, right? You still always want to cross-hatch so that things aren't scribbled. Okay, perfect. So you can see this is clearly lighter than this one. Now I'm going to go even lighter on the last one. And so what this color is actually pink. So pink is a tint of red. It's red with white in it. Okay, so you can see we have lighter and really, really light. So now here we're going to do 2 darker. So here what I'm going to do is do 1 layer of red, but now I'm going to start to add in that black colored pencil. But again, since black is so much darker than red, you really got to go lightly with that first layer. Don't put too much pressure down. And then we'll go in a different direction. And then another direction. I think that is pretty good for this one. So in this next one, I'm going to go even darker. And you can do all of this with the colors you made up here. You're just using 3 colored pencils. But obviously you can always use a regular orange colored pencil or violet or green or all the other colors that exist. But it's always just good to know how colors are made before you just always use the ones that have already been made for you. because then you can always control how much of a red you have in a color, how much blue you have in a color. Okay, and see I'm putting much more pressure down with my red. So even though it's really dark, there's still red in there. Okay, and so this is how you would transform the values of a particular color. And this one I can tell I probably need still some more red in it. It looks a little too just black. There we go. Okay, so you can see this is how we've made the colors. This is how we've done tints and shades. So then if you wanted to take this and apply it, let's say, to something that you've drawn. So let's say this time I'm going to go with blue. So let's say I want to draw a sphere. And the sphere is going to have a shadow. Now we already know from the other exercises we've done, shadows, the darkest area is right here under it. And the sphere is going to be blue. So I'm going to shade. And then it's going to go light up here, because the lightest area is always opposite from the shadow. Then I'm going to go put a little more pressure down here. Okay, a little more here. But now I'm going to take my black and add just a little bit here, just to show that it's really much darker on this side. And you can see I didn't start off with the black right away, because if I would have, it would have been way too dark. So then now I can just lightly kind of blend it in there. I'll add some of that dark right here in the shadow. And then maybe go back a little bit more with blue. Remember, shadows have to fade. I'm still cross-hatching, leaving this area lighter. And that's it. So then this is how you would take all of this, learning how to know where an area should be lighter, it should be darker, and apply it to an actual drawing. So this is just a simple sphere. Okay, so start off with this, and then once you've gotten all this down with colored pencil, then you can move on to paint.